Well kids, just like every year we get a new entry in sports games. We got 2K releasing a PGA game and its normal yearly NBA games. We got EA releasing FIFA, but all of these pale in comparison to Codemasters' yearly release of Formula 1. If you listen to Shake and Not Noob, link in description below, you'll know that Formula 1 2019 was my sports game of 2019. But let's see how this yearly update goes. Will it continue to stand on the podium, or will this year's yearly release fumble like the dumpster fire that was WWE 2K20?
And it's lights out and away we go!
Before we start about the game, let me briefly talk about the sport. Now, if you don't know what Formula 1 is, then let me educate you. It's the best motorsport in the world and the only sport I actually pay attention to. The race season normally starts in Melbourne, and I even had some outstanding seats with my old man for this year's season opener. But then COVID and the lockdowns came and that completely changed the sport and, well, the rest of the world, and my race weekend. Though as of this video, we've already had the first race in this new F1 season, and damn! Unlike other motorsports that are just based on going fast and turning left, there is strategy involved here with Formula 1. It's fast and it's about fractions of a second in timing, about when you need to pit and when to replace your tyres and what tyres to replace them with. There's so many factors, it's enough to make someone lose their head with a golf club. But more importantly, why are you here? Well, for some reason you found my YouTube page where normally it says, "Did you mean Call of Duty?" But presumably you're here to see Formula 1 2020 and whether it's worth an upgrade from 2019. There's a load of changes here with F1 2020 this year, so let's kick in and see how it runs. Just like with last year in Formula 1 2019, you'll be able to start with the career mode of Formula 1 2020 in Formula 2. Unlike last year, however, you'll be able to decide if you wish to play 3 quick races in Formula 2, half a season of Formula 2, or a full season of Formula 2. Formula 2 works as a feeder season into Formula 1, and depending on your performance and which academy you sign up for, will come into play when you join Formula 1. For those of you who don't want to race Formula 2 because you bought a Formula 1 game, which includes myself, you can actually skip this and jump straight into Formula 1. You'll be able to choose your team, and this season pick your teammate. Last year in Formula 1 2019, if you joined Renault, you would remove or replace Hülkenberg, where this time around you can choose who you replace. The same conditions exist as last year's with larger teams like Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull expecting nothing but the best. And if you don't perform, you could be dropped quicker than Vettel spinning out at Monza in 2019.
But I don't know if he was looking to see who was coming through.
Just came back on the circuit like an idiot.
The menus and interface have also been updated this time around. Rather than last year moving from race to race, you'll move to your Formula 1 team's headquarters between races, which is a nice touch. From here you'll be able to upgrade your car, spend money on upgrading your skills as a character, and negotiate your contracts. Basically, the career from Formula 1 2019 has been updated and refreshed for this year's entry, and it's a great addition. You'll even get interviewed by the legend himself, Will Buxton. I'd buy this dude a beer any day. In the career mode, you'll also be able to adjust the race length and difficulty from any time rather than starting a new campaign entirely. I may need to up the difficulty here. As you can see, my Williams is at the front of the pack while George Russell, my teammate, is at the back of the pack. The racing itself in Formula 1 2020 is as fast as Superman on laundry day.
She said you'd fold faster than Superman on laundry day.
We'll see about that.
We've got the tracks we all know and love and the addition of some new ones like Vietnam, which after completing the race in the game, I was incredibly bummed out we didn't get to watch the real race. This circuit is insane. For those of you trying Formula 1 for the first time, you'll be able to put the game on a beginner difficulty, which is a pretty decent place to start before fiddling with the difficulty and assists later on. We've also got a dedicated button for DRS, which took me by surprise as it replaces the button to change the camera. You will need to go into the menus and manually map a button to change camera angles, but this isn't really a negative, but something you may want to know. Tyre punctures are also more frequent in Formula 1 2020 compared to last year. What would have been a simple bit of wing damage to a wall, this year can actually cause a complete tyre puncture or blowout. The AI itself is even more realistic to its real-life drivers. Vettel is a bitch to get around as he'll try to undercut you whenever he can. Having Bottas or Hamilton under 1 second behind you is truly terrifying. Hell, even on my race in Bahrain, Charles Leclerc had an engine issue and had to retire from the race, basically like he had to in 2019. Again, just like last year, you'll be creating your own driver with a decent amount of customization options. You pick a preset face and sex, name, number, commentator name before moving on to your helmet design, your suit design, and making your own custom emblem, which is comfortably in depth. What floored me was there was a podium celebration customization. In Formula 1 2019, getting on the podium got a little bit old as your driver would just do the same animation over and over again, where this time around you'll be able to choose how your driver reacts to coming first. If only we could get a reaction that would make Patrick Stewart do a shoey.
Cheers!
You'll also be able to choose how your character poses for the photos and how they are in the menus, as they aren't just still photos. Last year we had still images of your driver, and this time around they start to feel like an actual driver where they move in the menus. It won't be long now before we start seeing our custom characters in the Formula 1 intro cinematic. You'll also be able to earn, unlock, and purchase different helmet designs, suits, car liveries, logos, and loads more. If only we could get a helmet design that would look as sweet as Daniel Ricciardo's one. You'll feel more like a real driver with being paid. That's right, you'll get paid for driving in Formula 1. You'll start getting paid basically nothing, but the more you perform and how you act out on the track will increase your market value, which comes into handy when you're signing a new contract or renewing your contract. You'll also be able to spend your money on a social media team, which will get you more followers, further training, which will slow down your wear and tear on tyres and the engine levels, or the ability to unlock lines of dialogue when you're being interviewed. We also have a new mode in Formula 1 2020 where you'll be the owner of the team in My Team mode. You'll be the owner and the driver of your own team, and this makes things harder and more interesting than the standard career mode. You create the 11th team, meaning there are now 22 drivers on the track at one time. You'll select an engine provider, pick a second driver, design the car, pick sponsors, name the team, pick the team colours, and heaps more. This mode is basically a more in-depth version of the My Career mode, but rather than driving for an existing team, you'll be driving for your own team. Once I started this mode, I couldn't see much of a reason to go back to the standard My Career mode. Clearly, you being the new team on the grid, you're supposed to start a bit crap and struggle to get past teams like Williams, but depending on the difficulty, you can breeze past Hamilton with ease in your brand new, never before tested Formula 1 car. You'll need to manage sponsors' expectations, and they'll even have small goals that if you meet them, you'll be granted a bonus and paid more. Just like in My Career mode, funds can be placed into different avenues, but rather than just upgrading yourself as a driver, you'll need to upgrade the different departments of your team. You can upgrade the facilities like aerodynamics, which makes it easier to upgrade the aerodynamic parts of your car. The only real issue I have with this mode is you can't change the actual parts of your car. You won't be able to change the nose or the front wings or the steering wheel or really anything. Sure, you'll be able to visually customize it with paint and sponsored logos, but you can't change parts on your Formula 1 car to make it stand out from the rest. Now, you'll be able to have multiple sponsors for your team, but these aren't real sponsors. It'd be nice if you could score big sponsors like McDonald's or Pepsi or Migoreng. You won't even have the engine manufacturer on your car, which kinda sucks. Everything multiplayer we previously had in Formula 1 2019 is back for Formula 1 2020, but we've also got the return of split screen, baby! Yes, it's something we've had in basically every video game since the Nintendo 64, but it's a bit rad having split screen return for Formula 1. I did get Mrs. Dudi
Mrs. Dudi
to play some split screen with me, but as you can see here, it didn't really go too well. The split screen options are pretty standard: pick a circuit, driver difficulty, and vehicle damage. Then each player will be able to enable or disable assists. So I would have no braking assists and manual gear changes, while Mrs. Dudi would have it on beginner assist mode. Just like in Formula 1 2019, we've got classic cars galore, and yes, you'll be able to race these vehicles. You'll have the classics like Schumacher's Ferrari, Hamilton's McLaren, and the car that made Vettel look good. And as you can already see and hear, Formula 1 2020 is fantastic. As a side note too, if you are playing this on an Xbox One like I am, an Elite controller will make the racing experience even better with the use of the back pedals. Having a controller mapped for the shifting of up and down using the back pedals gives a greater sense of immersion without going out and buying a F1 racing wheel setup. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm still tempted to do it. But As nearly everything is perfect, there are some small issues, and again, I wouldn't really say they're issues, but nitpicks, most of which can be resolved with patches and updates. The audio will get patchy and crackly when surrounded by other drivers, especially if you're on the Hanoi map. Once you start to pull away or fall behind if you're racing in a Renault from the pack, the audio issues will disappear. I also found that in my team mode, the logo that I designed for my team and my car was pixelated to shit on both my car, my driver's suit, and on the wall in my team headquarters. Graphically, while the F1 cars look fantastic, other cars in the game look okay, but clearly not up to the scratch of the Formula 1 models. The safety car doesn't really have any detail to it, and when you look at the crew character models, they're again okay. After you finish your qualifying lap, you won't be able to slow down and signal to the other drivers to overtake you as you now do a cooldown lap. And if you're not going fast enough, you'll cause a yellow flag. There's also no penalties for going too fast in a yellow flagged area, and you won't get grid penalties in qualifying for going too fast through yellow flagged areas. Also, should you go off track during the race and give up, basically what Renault's doing, why the fuck is Alonso coming back? And you're away from any dangerous areas, you can't radio to your team saying you're out. You'll cause a yellow flag in the area you're in. You basically just need to crash out. I also had another audio issue where I couldn't use my headset mic to speak to my technician. Normally you can push a button on the controller and speak a command like driver in front or driver behind, and the tech will tell you who the driver is, how far they are behind you or in front of you, what tyres they're using, and how fresh those tyres are. It appears to be an issue that can be patched there, and you can still ask for these details using the D-pad. But when you're going over 300 kilometers an hour, you don't want to look away from the track to ask a question using the D-pad. Finally, and this is a very small nitpick, but the F1 liveries aren't up to date as what they are now. The cars in Formula 1 2020 are what they are supposed to be at the start of the season in Melbourne, but that didn't really happen. Some cars have now changed. Williams have lost their major sponsor Rocket, and the Mercedes cars are now black, rather than silver. And I kinda wish these liveries were updated. The Williams look like a damn Colgate toothpaste tube. Apparently Codemasters are releasing a patch to change the liveries and patch some of these issues, and that's why I said they aren't really issues but more nitpicking. Formula 1 2020 does what every single yearly release game should do. Improve from its previous entry by adding new features and updating previous features. We've got updated cars, a great updated UI, character customization from last year, and now we've got a new mode in My Team, which will have fans glued to their racing wheels. Now, unlike Burnout Paradise, Formula 1 2020 is a simulator game. You can play it with no damage and heavy assist on, which makes it easier to learn how to play, but there are things you'll need to do which make it a simulator. You'll need to do qualifying, you'll need to pit to change tyres, you'll need to manage your fuel. If you're not a Formula 1 fan, but the game seems interesting for you to jump in on, give it a shot. Last year Formula 1 2019 interested me and it got me hooked onto the real motorsport, and now Formula 1 2020 will act as my F1 fix between races. Anyway, the improvement from last year's entry and the new My Team mode make Formula 1 2020 a fantastic entry, and I cannot wait for next year's next-gen Formula 1 title.